This is big. Football is back. I'm gambling again. I love this countdown. Yo, the boy is back. NFL is back, and I am joined by an absolute legend in the DFS game. Drew Dinkmeyer of Established the Run. Drew, what's going on, brother?
Oh, baby. It's time. It's daily fantasy season. It's season-long season. I've been throwing in best ball drafts. Finished out, I think, 550 best ball drafts in the last 2 or 3 months.
That's insane.
I'm ready to go, man.
That's insane. 550 best ball drafts is absolutely crazy. You're a crazy person. You know that, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, look, this is what I eat, breathe, live, drink. I mean, fantasy football, fantasy sports, daily fantasy sports, especially, it's my thing, man.
So for the people that don't know, and they should know, can you explain your background a little bit, who you are, what you do, and the site that you guys run that is excellent?
Yeah. So I am actually the head of NBA content over at Established Run, but I work on the football side as well. We're a fantasy football, fantasy sports focused site that basically tries to deliver concise content and analysis along with all the projections and tools and things that you would need to make your season-long lineup decisions as well as your daily fantasy decisions. And I am a professional daily fantasy sports player. So I left a finance job in 2013 and started focusing on fantasy sports full-time. And yeah, I've been doing it for 10 years, basically playing professional daily fantasy sports. It's been wild.
That is so crazy to me just to think like I quit my job and I play fantasy football for a living or fantasy sports for a living. Like, I feel like everybody on this stream is like, God, I wish. Like, only if I could. How difficult is it? Before we get, so by the way, hello, everybody. Tony Claudio, Drew Dinkmeyer. If you're just joining us, we will be building a nice little 30K flea flicker DraftKings lineup for tonight's game where football is back, Dano. Okay. We've got that going on. We're probably going to answer some sit-start questions coming up after we build our lineup. But before all that, how difficult is it to be a professional fantasy sports player? Like grinding DFS to, make sure that you have a roof over your head is what level of hard?
Yeah, it's pretty hard. Back when I first did it, when I first made the jump, it was a lot easier. The games were a lot softer. There wasn't as much competition. People weren't as informed on how to play the games correctly. You could play some opponents who wouldn't even have players that were starting in lineups back then. Now that stuff's not really going to happen. So now it's a lot more difficult. The games are a little bit more efficient, but you can still make a pretty good living if you're, selecting the right contests, playing the right styles, especially on the tournament side. It's volatile because the swings are so big. Like some of these prize pools, like the Millie Makers on DraftKings, like first place is $1 million, right? I was lucky enough to win one of those in 2014. Second place is $150,000. And you might lose by like half a point, and it's an $850,000 difference. That's a difference of like multiple years worth of a good salary. You know what I mean? So like the swings are pretty ridiculous and pretty gut wrenching. But over time, the cream rises to the top.
It's crazy how, we think of fantasy at such a binary level when it's your home league or when it's even just small stakes daily. Right, where you tilt in a certain way when your guy gets tackled at the one and then they bring in the vulture running back who scores and you're like, fuck, man, I really needed those 6 points. And then imagine that to the level of, oh, wait a second, my guy got tackled at the one. Now I'm not making $1 million, but I'm making 30 grand because I dropped from 1 to 7. Oh, right, yeah. Like I would tilt my face off.
Yeah, it's not the healthiest way to live. I'll be honest with you, Tony, but it's the way I've chosen to make a living. That's fun, but yeah, the swings are insane. I mean, I've had brutal beats over the years that I can remember with perfect clarity, right?
Give me the worst one. Give me the worst one.
And then, I mean, there's oh gosh, there was this one beat that I had where this was actually like, from a fantasy perspective, one of the biggest beats I had was a player getting ejected, which never happens in the NFL. Never happens in the NFL.
Right.
Chad Johnson, this was before daily fantasy. Actually, this was just a high stakes, like season long league. Chad Johnson got ejected in the second half of a game in the finals. And that was like probably a $10,000 swing, something like that. But I mean, there's a guy who lost a milli maker was winning the last kickoff of the last game. The team fumbled and the defense recovered, and it was enough to knock him out. It was a kickoff with 2 seconds left in the game, and they did all the laterals and everything, and the guy fumbled. And I mean, there's just insane beats that happen. And it's hundreds of thousands of dollars at times with these things. It's crazy.
So not that I've been playing daily fantasy at any sort of professional level, but one of the bad beats that I have is, and something we could probably talk about here to a lot of the people that are either just getting into daily fantasy or have been playing, but maybe are not as invested as everybody else. Cause there's a lot of pros now. There's a lot of sharks in the pools. And so we have a Le Batard Show pool league that everybody joins. You can actually, I think it's dkng.co/Le Batard, where you can sign up for all of our pools. So this was probably week, I want to say 3 or 4 of last season. And I put together a monster lineup that I ended up getting third in the Le Batard Show league. And I won like $30 out of like, imagine there's like maybe 1,000 people that joined. If I would have input that same lineup into a milli maker, into a super high stakes, high payout league, I would have won like 10 grand. So I just sat there looking at it like, oh my God, I scored 213 points and it doesn't matter. I won $30. Like, I was sick to my stomach. I didn't play DFS for like 3 weeks afterwards. I'm like, I'm done. Like, I can't.
Yep. Yeah. That's the toughest is when you have the right lineup in the wrong contest. Cause
oh my God.
Like, especially these football contests are so big. They're just so big. Like the flea flicker that we're playing tonight, I play the flea flicker often on Sundays on DraftKings. It's like a $5 entry, and first is usually like a couple, tens of thousands of dollars for a $5 entry. It's just like you have to beat hundreds of thousands of people often, but still, like if you get stuff right on an NFL DFS week, like we had a subscriber last year win a milli maker. And I think he had $100 in total entries out that week. And he won like $1.1 million. It's just insane. It's crazy.
When you hit. Great transition. Let's see. I think Lewis is back there somewhere in the background. Lou, can you bring up our screen so we can start building our lineup? If he's not out there, I will have to do it myself. There he is. Attaboy. Thank you, Lou. All right. So this is our 30K flea flicker. 10K to first, by the way. So, I mean, if we get Drew, I'll split it with you. How about we'll split it in thirds. I'll give a third to Lou, I'll give a third to you, and I'll take a third myself.
Perfect.
So for people that don't know, like when you do a single game like this, obviously we've got football kicking off tonight. Everybody is absolutely ravenous for some sort of football that isn't preseason. And college football, I don't know about you, Drew, just college football doesn't hit the same for me. Like I need there to be stakes. That's why I've got my Rob Lowe hat. I don't know if you can see me here.
I love it.
Have to support the shield. Can you explain to people in a single game like this, obviously if they're looking through their regular slate, they're not going to see the captain mode here. Like, can you explain to people what that means and why it's different than everything else?
Yeah. So the big difference is like on a normal main slate, you have positions that you have to fill: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, defense, so on and so forth. In a showdown, because it's just one game and there's a limited player pool, instead you have 6 roster spots, but one of them gets you 1.5 times the points. So for every touchdown that they score, instead of it being 6 points, it's worth 9 points for you. For every catch that they get, instead of it being worth 1 point per reception, it's worth 1.5 points, and so on and so forth. But their salary is also 1.5 times the flex salary. So you could use Josh Allen as your captain. He's the second most expensive captain on this slate tonight, and it would cost you $18,000. But if you used him in a flex spot, it would only cost you $12,000 of your $50,000 salary cap. So the captain is often the decision that is often the determinant in terms of how successful you are, because if you go cheap at captain, you might be able to fit in a bunch of studs. But if it's a high scoring game, can that cheap player score enough points to keep up with the studs getting 1.5 times? And those are the types of decisions you have to think through in this game. It's pretty cool. It's a little complex.
So as we're looking here, obviously Cooper Kupp, if we're just picking our captain right now, like we got Cooper Kupp at 18.6, we got Josh Allen at 18, Stafford at 16.2, Diggs at 13.5. What do you think about paying up at QB for for captain, right? Like Cooper Kupp at 18.6, like I don't know if we have him as captain, how much we can really fill in our flex spots. I'm trying to think of like going lower and maybe putting Stephon Diggs there at 13.5, Stafford at 16, and maybe, you know, pairing him with Cooper Kupp in a little stack. Or what I want to get your take on this. I know we haven't seen him be him in a long time, but Allen Robinson at 6'2", if he's just a flex, is super crazy. It's like such a low price for him.
Yeah. So the big thing about a showdown lineup, which is these single game contests are called Showdown on DraftKings. The big thing about it is you sort of want to tell yourself a story, right? About like how the game is going to go. Because really what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a lineup for a specific way that the game plays out. Because in these tournaments, oftentimes, because it's just one game and you're all working with the same limited player pool, you can end up building a lineup that a lot of other people have.
Right.
And if all the other people have it, you have less chance of winning money. You win less when you win. So like an example I always give is if you were in a 10-person league and 9 people had the same lineup and you had a different lineup, you'd be in really good shape with the different lineup. Because even if you don't beat those 9 people, well, you lost. You got $0 back of your $10 entry or $5 entry, whatever. But if you beat just that one lineup, then you get all the money because you finished first, right?
Right.
So you want to try to be a little bit different as well, which in these games is why you want to think through, like, how do you think this game is going to go? Like, do you think the Bills are going to blow the Rams out? Do you think the Rams are going to play really well? Do you think it's going to be a high scoring game, a low scoring game, different things like that? I like to think through that first, and then I start to build my captain decisions, because my captain decisions always have one or two other spots that come with it. And I'll explain this why as well. If you're going to use like Cooper Kupp in the captain spot, well, you might as well make sure that Matthew Stafford's in that lineup as well. Because if Cooper Kupp's doing enough to score the most points, Matthew Stafford, he's pulling him along, right? And if you use Josh Allen in the captain spot, you're going to want to use at least 2 Bills wide receivers or pass catchers. You know, James Cook could be a pass catcher, or Dawson Knox a pass catcher. Because if Josh Allen's putting up really big points in the captain spot, sure, maybe he could run 3 touchdowns in or something like that and do it by himself. But usually he's pulling other people with him. So you first want to decide kind of how you think the game's going to play, which side you're more interested in. And it doesn't have to be which side's going to win the game, but which side's going to generate more fantasy points. And then you want to kind of make your captain decisions off of that.
So I'm thinking this again. I'm gambling again, obviously. I think the Rams as a home doggy is like really, really juicy to me, right? Yep. I think a couple things. One, the Bills are going to be a buzzsaw this season, right? I'm worried about the loss of Brian Daboll. I know Kenny Dorsey's there repping the U. Shout out to him. How much can they keep of Brian Daboll's offense that really turned Josh Allen's life around, right? Like there was a moment where we were looking at Josh Allen like, I don't know if this is the guy. And then all of a sudden now he's been the best fantasy quarterback for the last 2 years, and he looks just like the best quarterback in football. So I don't know how much is Brian Daboll versus how much does Josh Allen turn the corner, but like, with him now there, with Stephon Diggs being kind of the skeleton key that unlocked Josh Allen in a certain sense, there's a lot of targets available for him. And I think that this could be a shootout game. If I'm in my heart of hearts, I think it could be a shootout game. I know the over-under is what, like 50, like 51 or 54. I haven't looked at it.
Yeah, it's at 52 right
52.
now.
52. So like I can see a 31-28 game easily, right? Matt Gay or Tyler Bass kicks a field goal to win it at the end. Like I also feel like we get in trouble there, right? Like you want to will so much offense where it's still the first game of the season. Nobody's really been able to execute certain game speeds and stuff like that. So you always want to have that cautiousness. But if I'm telling you a story, Drew, and I can see Stephon Diggs not shadow covered by Jalen Ramsey.
Yep.
Getting a monster target share now that there's no Cole Beasley, no Manny Sanders, Gabe Davis, who we'll talk about in a second, who I think everybody loves or hates depending on where you sit. But I can see a world where Josh Allen and Diggs connect for 8 for 112 and a touchdown.
Love it.
And like that at the paying, being a little bit cheaper on the captain side and like having Diggs as my captain. I kind of like that a lot, actually.
I love it. I love it. And I think the way we're projecting this game as well, we're projecting Diggs to be, looking here, I think it's the third most popular captain behind Josh Allen, number one, Cooper Kupp, number two. But Josh Allen projected to be utilized by about 20% of the field in the captain spot.
Yeah.
And Diggs only about 10%.
Yeah, I
so
see that.
Immediately we're starting to get a little bit different from the field, like one step in the direction of different. And once we have Diggs in the captain spot, I think next thing we can do is we can throw Josh Allen right in that lineup.
Absolutely.
It's pretty unlikely that Diggs is going to have a big enough game to be in the captain spot without Josh Allen scoring enough points to be one of the top 5 or 6 scorers on the slate.
And how important is a stack, not only today, but just in general in DFS? Like, I think there's certain tricks of the trade that first-time DFS players don't really understand. And I feel like there's been a little bit of a bleed through from sharp DFS people to home leagues and redraft and season-long people where all of a sudden, hey, a stack is really valuable, right? Like if I have Travis Kelce and I have Mahomes, more weeks than not, like I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah, and the reason why is because in general, in these games that are probabilistic and there's correlated players, so generally when Steph Diggs does well, Josh Allen has to do well as well. You're trying to minimize the number of things you have to get right, especially in a DFS game. DFS game, to get to the top of a tournament, you got to get like 7 or 8 things right? You got to, in this case, a 6-man lineup on a normal week and an 8-man lineup or 9-man lineup. So you have to get a lot of things right. Well, let's try to find ways to get fewer things right. And the ways to get fewer things right are to stack, to put your quarterback with a pass catcher or 2 and kind of and say, okay, I'm expecting this quarterback to do well. If he does well, he's probably going to drag along these other guys. So you just try to make it so that there's fewer things you have to get right in order to succeed. And on those big slates, the main slates, like we'll see on Sunday afternoon, the stacking will be less utilized than it should be, because people who are just kind of transitioning over, they're just kind of picking their best players. And they're like, oh, I'll take Lamar Jackson here. And then I'll take Kelce at tight end. And then I'll take, and they're putting these lineups together that they really like, but they're having to get 8 or 9 different things right, when a professional DFS player is creating a lineup that only has to get like 3 or 4 things right.
Right.
And that's kind of the big difference.
It's the chess versus checkers of what everybody's kind of playing in DFS. All right. This is somebody, and again, if you're not getting your projections and your rankings from Establish the Run, you're not getting it right, because I'm looking at the main slate breakdown and I was looking at, Cooper Kupp. Like it's crazy. Just, I have all the projections here, and it's funny how you were mentioning it. But again, you need to go find it, establishedrun.com. One of the guys that you guys have been super high on, and I have to scroll far down because he's very, very low. Where is
even
he?
Lower?
Even lower
in the 2000s.
Yes. A guy that
you're going to scroll down to.
That Levitan, that Silva, that everybody's kind of really been in on, is this guy right here that is a bit of a slate buster and a lineup buster because of his cheapness. Talk a little bit about Isaiah Mckenzie and why when you're linking and stacking 2 pass catchers, like why that value at 2,400 for Isaiah Mckenzie is so important to the slate.
Yeah, so immediately you can see like the average remaining dollars per player just jumped up by adding Mckenzie in there, because he's so cheap on this slate. He's one of the biggest decision points on this slate, because the role for Isaiah Mckenzie is going to be incredible. They lost Cole Beasley. They did not bring him back. They brought Jamison Crowder off of free agency, which they signed him for very little money. And then he came in and got hurt right away at the beginning of camp. Older player, veteran players battled injuries. Mckenzie got an opportunity late in the season last year, kind of when they were playing for, not much, not super meaningful games, produced in both of those starts that he got towards the end of the season. And then in camp, all this buzz has been around Isaiah Mckenzie kind of breaking out and earning that slot receiver job that we saw was so valuable with Cole Beasley last year. I mean, Cole Beasley went from a guy that nobody was drafting, and in PPR leagues, middle of the season, you're picking him up, you're starting him in there. You got 10 to 15 points almost every single week just because of the volume of that role. Well, now Isaiah McKenzie's getting that role. He's got a little bit more juice to him. Maybe not quite the route runner that Cole Beasley is, but maybe a little bit better of an athlete at this point in Cole Beasley's career. Cole Beasley, an exceptional athlete, by the way. I don't know if you've ever seen the dunking videos of Cole Beasley back in the Cowboys days.
He's incredible. He's
outrageous.
Like, he's a rapper. He dunks. He runs routes in the NFL.
Wild.
Like
it's wild. He is an incredible athlete. But older guy, Isaiah McKenzie, younger legs, got a little bit more juice. So he's coming in this big role where we're projecting, I think, like 6-7 targets for him tonight, and high value targets in terms of his ability to make catches. So he's really cheap. He's going to be very popular on this slate. we're projecting him to be utilized by like 35-40% of the field. And so that's like a big decision point tonight. And actually one of my, as a tournament player, right? Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do something that's different than everybody else so that if it's right, I can shoot up the leaderboards. Now it's going to be right, less likely than the thing everybody else is doing. The thing that everybody else is doing is probably the right thing to do. But the pivot that I like is I like James Cook over Isaiah McKenzie tonight.
Really?
A little bit of a quiet preseason for James Cook. There's been a lot of talk about Zach Moss getting goal line work. James Cook, they drafted him in the second round. They went out and signed JD McKissick, and then McKissick reneged on the deal. They've wanted a pass catching back. You can't run on the Rams. Nobody runs on the Rams. They've been one of the best teams run defense wise. Cook is $400 different than Isaiah McKenzie. We've got him projected for just 15% ownership compared to 35 to 40% for McKenzie. So that's going to be one of my personal big stands on the slate tonight. I'm going to have a lot more Cook than McKenzie to try to get different. Now, I think McKenzie is more likely to outscore James Cook, but when he does, you're going up the leaderboard with everybody else. If he doesn't, and it's Cook, you kind of go up the leaderboard with fewer people.
The other interesting thing too is the way the Buffalo's offense runs. I mean, their pass rate over expectation is crazy, right? Like they're running 3 receiver sets at a really high clip. Another, obviously buoy for Isaiah McKenzie, because you look around the slate and you say, why am I getting a third wide receiver, right? Like a guy that's going to play not, the majority amount of snaps in a base offense, but you notice that they run 3 wide receivers a lot, right? So like, it's an interesting pivot for James Cook because, as you said, they've got 3 running backs, and 2 of them are kind of the 20 to 20 grinders when you look at Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. And then James Cook, all he really needs is like that one catch, right? That can. And
I wouldn't be surprised if they went into the game plan, because we heard really good training camp reports for James Cook. Then we just didn't see a lot in the preseason, and I just wouldn't be surprised if like they've been not wanting to show it, because they knew this specific matchup was one that they wanted to utilize Cook more, because I really think pass catching, like the Rams have a very stout front 7, right?
Yes.
Obviously Aaron Donald, add in Bobby Wagner. Like this team is loaded up front. And so they're very tough to run on, and they get a really good pass rush. And how do you defeat that? Get the ball out quick. Mm-hmm. And so I think McKenzie's going to have a good game, but I think he's going to be more utilized than Cook. And so I'm interested in Cook tonight.
All right, let's take a look. Now we've got our little bill stack here. We've got 3 players left, and obviously with a $2,800 dollar player, that allows us to do a lot more things than what we would if we put somebody else up there. If we're telling the story, right? I think we know Cooper Kupp, 31% target share last year, 34% of the air yards last year. Like, I don't think anybody was close to that, right? Like me and Lou were talking at the beginning of the before we got on, and we're saying what an elite target share is somewhere between 24 to 26. Is that somebody you'd be like, my God, that is elite?
I would say like 23 to 27 is huge.
And he's at 31, almost 32%.
You get guys in 30s. It's like it's a very rarefied air.
I don't know. I feel like everybody's going to be on Cooper Kupp. And I really I know the price, and I feel like everybody else is going to be on him too. But man, Allen Robinson, like at $6,200, that's something that I feel like I need to have in there, just in the case of like, maybe on the, let's see what the ETR projections. Let's take a look at Allen Robinson. His ceiling, you guys have a ceiling. He's a very highly owned player, by the way, 40%.
40% though on a showdown isn't like crazy. Like Cooper Kupp is projecting for like 55-60%.
I see 70 here, which is insane. Yeah. But his ceiling, we're looking at 21 points as a ceiling on DK. Like for $6,200, 21 points is really, really good.
And this is a situation, no Van Jefferson for LA tonight, so you might.
And Skowronek is the third guy.
Yeah. So like they're going to be playing Skowronek and Tutu Atwell, who are guys that if you were playing lots of lineups, you might consider, just because they're really cheap and people aren't going to know them as much. So they might be different. But if you're playing just one lineup, you might not be on these guys. But yeah, I think Allen Robinson and Cooper Kupp, I think they're both just going to get a ton of targets tonight. I think it's going to be a really concentrated offense for the Rams. I think it'll be more concentrated for the Rams than it will be for the Bills. I think the Bills will be a little bit more spread out.
How many kickers do you see in top 10 lineups?
So it depends on the game. And generally, what you want with kickers is you want games where they're lower scoring and there's less pass reception volume. Because on DraftKings, you get a lot of point, you get a full point per every reception.
Right.
So if these two teams are going to throw the ball 45 times each, and let's say there's going to be 30 completions, or 25 to 30 completions, it's just a lot of points for a kicker to try to overcome. So generally the kickers, they're better in games where the teams are going to run the ball a lot. So I'm not as excited about the kickers tonight, even though they're both cheap. That's why I like the cheap pass catchers, whether it's Cook or Mckenzie, those types of guys a little bit more.
It's interesting too, because you want to be the contrarian in the group that has that kicker that goes off. Matt Gay goes for 20 points or whatever. I feel like there was somebody this past season that had like an 8-for-8 game or something and scored like 24 points. I'm trying to think of who it was. I feel like it was somebody on the Jets. Or maybe it was like
it's usually the bad offenses.
Yeah, exactly.
The kickers, yeah.
I think if we've got Allen Robinson, we have to have Stafford, right? No.
You don't have to. You don't have to, but certainly possible. I would say with Robinson, you're deciding you're deciding, do I want Robinson and Kupp, and betting that essentially in that scenario that there's a lot of catches that are concentrated with these guys, but maybe not a lot of touchdowns, right? Because if it was a lot of touchdowns, then you'd want Stafford with those guys. But I think you either choose to have Stafford with Robinson and be like, I'm fading Kupp, which immediately you're getting pretty unique because
right.
Kupp's going to be one of the highest owned players, right? 70% is what we were talking about. Or you say, I'm going to fade Stafford and hope that they don't score as many touchdowns. And that's when the kicker actually might make more sense, because you're saying they're going to catch a lot of passes. They might get a lot of yards, but they're not scoring touchdowns because Stafford's ceiling is going to be generated by passing touchdowns, right? That's the only way he generates the ceiling.
Man, decisions. I don't feel bad for you guys that have to make hundreds and hundreds of DFS decisions every single week, because I would drive myself crazy. And of course, you guys have a great, deal with the lineup optimizer, and that does a lot of the heavy lifting for you guys. But man, fading Cooper Kupp is not something that I love doing, especially what he did last year. And of course, it's not a transitive property that he's automatically going to be the same this year. But
I would be fine playing Kupp and fading Stafford. Honestly.
Yeah, a little double wide receiver action.
Totally
okay,
fine doing that. Yeah. And that would leave us with 3,100. So we'd have to find something, cheap again. We know that we have Mckenzie there as an option that we can go back to. And he's probably the best option by a decent margin. But yeah, that's the type of lineup that I'm looking at. And then the other note that I'll just note, because Schefter mentioned this, Adam Schefter was on ESPN today mentioning that he's playing Kieran Williams in the War Room League.
Really?
As his running back too. And Cam Akers has been banged up. Darrell Henderson's been banged up through training camp. They rested Kieran Williams at the end of the last preseason game. They didn't even play him, which is very unusual. The Rams never play their main guys in preseason, and Kieran Williams played the first few preseason games, didn't play the last one. So that's another very Schefter. There's some tea leaves here.
Something's happening. We're trying to figure out what it is. Kieran Williams. Wow. Yeah, exactly. Shout out to Brian Windhorst, the boy. Man, I'm just looking across the spectrum here, and it's like, do we want to have 4 Bills guys? What's the success rate of kind of overloading on one team?
Yeah,
right?
it's actually a great way to play these, because you can get more unique. Like a lot of the field doesn't like to play 5 of one team and 1 of the other, but generally, especially games that everybody thinks are going to be close, most people play 3-3. Most of the field plays that, so it's actually not a bad way to differentiate.
All right, let's throw Isaiah McKenzie in there.
There we go.
Where is he?
I like that lineup.
Dude, the lineup. It's a sneaky lineup. Lineup. All right, so we have Stephon Diggs as our captain. Again, that's 1.5 points per. We got Josh Allen. We got James Cook, A-Rob. We got Cooper Kupp, and we got Isaiah McKenzie. I'm going to update the entry. And again, if we hit and I win 10 grand, you can expect a $3,000 check over to the Dinkmeyer estate, making sure that we pay our dues. Boom, we are in.
Possible winnings. Love to see it.
Look at that. Oh, man. There is nothing better than that. Drew, thank you so much, dude, for hanging out. Again, as always, check out establishthorun.com. Follow Drew at Drew Dinkmeyer. Follow Establish the Run at Establish the Run. They do amazing work over there. I'm binge potting every single thing. Lou, don't turn on my music yet. Not yet. I'm going to let Drew go, and then we got to answer a bunch of questions. Drew's got to fill out about 10,000 lineups.
Exactly.
In the next hour and some change. But again, I wanted to say thank you so much for hanging out. I know you're a huge fan of the show. This means a lot to me because you are a absolute legend in the game. And I'm just absolutely absorbing like a sponge everything that you guys do at Establish the Run, Establish the Edge, Leone, and obviously Evan and Levitan. Evan and Levitan. Just putting out all the stuff that they do. You guys are absolute heroes amongst men. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Appreciate it, man. We are huge Levitard fans. I'm the biggest one by far of the company, but all of us consume a lot of Levitard content. So huge honor to be a part of the show. We get the show and love the community out there. So hopefully we can help people make some money tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And then maybe we can do it again next week.
Yeah, sounds good, buddy.
Awesome. Thanks, Drew.
All right, later.
That was Drew Dinkmeyer. Man, it feels weird to be here by myself all alone. Let me exit here. Okay, so, and I promised you we were going to do it.
You telling me to jump in here? Is that the, so everyone can see the kitchen in the background?
My one rule, you got to put on headphones because if not, I hear myself twice. Everybody hears yourself twice. It's crazy.
All right.
Okay, so you can mute yourself while I go here. So, we promised everybody to do some sit-start stuff. Obviously, the game, what time is it right now? 7:04.
7:04,
the game starts at 8:20. Game starts at 8:20. The boy's going to call in once we're done here doing a couple sit start, maybe run through the slate a little bit. The boy's going to call Flannies, pick up a little some, watch the game. I'm gambling again.
Gabe Davis, dude.
Okay.
Gabe Davis.
Do you want to start there?
Yeah, let's start with Gabe Davis. I mean, obviously, like not putting him in the DFS lineup, but like not gonna disrespect the boy. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna jump in there. But talk a little bit about Gabe Davis and how I am exposed to him in every league that I have.
Dude, okay. So Gabe Davis was a part-time player last season. Obviously, they had Cole Beasley, they had Emmanuel Sanders, and he was in, I think he ran 50 some odd. Oh, Siri, please. I think he had like 50% of the snaps, right? Maybe a little less. He's going into a major role in probably one of the, if they were, I think, second in pass rate over expectation. I think the Bucks were first, but there's a chance that we could see with the development of Josh Allen that go up, right? So they're passing in obviously negative game script. They're passing in neutral game script, which means when the game is tied, and in positive game script, they're also throwing the ball, which is really important, right? We want to get guys with high value touches. Gabe Davis was a huge red zone threat last season. Obviously, he's a big body wide receiver, a good route runner. He's getting open in space. Josh Allen trusts him. I saw a stat today. Josh Allen is like 40 or 50 or 60 touchdowns to one interception in the red zone, which is absolutely insane.
They're playing NFL Street over there. It's just NFL Street.
It's crazy. So to get all that to say, I really like Gabe Davis. I'm also exposed to Gabe Davis in a lot of different leagues. I think that he, with the given volume of what they're going to be doing, throwing the ball, he's an upside wide receiver too. I didn't play him today just because we had already gotten some guys that were at a discount, and I thought Gabe Davis was at a discount too, being what, 7,200 or something.
Correct.
But
we got
I'm fighting
Cooper Kupp and A-Rob.
Right.
And A-Rob was way too cheap, by the way.
Right, exactly. But to answer your question, Gabe Davis, I'm excited for him this year. I think he's going to be a big part of the offense. And anytime that I can get a receiver that is tied to the best quarterback in the NFL, like, I want that. I'm searching for that. A la, Tyreek Hill when he was with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce now. Like, there's guys that I'm interested in being in the presence of, right? Obviously, Justin Jefferson with Kirk Cousins. I mean, what are you going to do?
Talking about? What are we going to do?
All right. This one comes from, let's see. We're going to rip through some questions here. This one comes from Nathaniel Segu. I need your expertise. Have Adam Thielen and someone wants Devontae Smith straight up. I also have Kupp, Gabe Davis, and Jerry Jeudy. It's a PPR Superflex league.
Gabe
so
Davis.
this guy's trading. He has Adam Thielen. and somebody wants Adam Thielen is going to offer him Devontae Smith. I'm taking the Devontae Smith side on that. And I know I put out a video fading both of them, right? Just because Adam Thielen getting up there in age, the wrong side of 30, been injured a lot. Devonta Smith, I don't know if he's going to be if they're going to give the ball to him as much as they want to run the ball with AJ Brown there. But I still think I'm on the Devontae Smith side of that trade.
That's a tough one.
Andy Globocar. I don't have my glasses on. How many weeks before James Cook takes over the starting role in Buffalo?
Ooh.
Drew was talking about how James Cook is the guy that they really drafted to replace basically everybody else. They have uno muerto. And in Cuban slang, uno muerto means like corpses, right? Like they're not good. Devin Singletary, who actually came on a little bit last year. Zach Moss, who they drafted to be there to take over Devin Singletary, and he didn't do it. I don't know. I think they want to keep all three guys fresh, obviously knowing that they want to go further and deeper into the playoffs than they did last year. And I think an important thing to do is having guys that are healthy. Sometimes it's not only the team that's the best, it's the team that's the healthiest in the playoffs. So I think they want to keep that rotation going. But I can see a world in where James Cook, maybe by week, let's say 7 or 8, is all of a sudden now getting more shares of that backfield than anybody else. I can see that. Are you starting any Chiefs receivers? It's from Andrew Dalton. Are you starting any Chiefs receivers? Trey Lance or Baker Mayfield? I'm guessing for week 1.
Wait, you're not going to answer the Chiefs question?
Of course, I'm just reading both of them.
Sorry, if you hear a baby crying in the background, that's why I'm muting my mic.
It's one of 7 that Lewis has there at the daycare
3.
that he's running.
That's the daycare. That's a new one. I like that one.
That is one. Am I taking any Chiefs receivers? Yeah, I think Juju's gonna have a nice year. I think this is inarguably the best quarterback that Juju Smith-Schuster's ever had, right? Period.
Ever played with.
Period. When did we? Let's ask a question for the room. I'm sorry, I'm fighting sinusitis. That's why you hear me a little.
Sinusitis is on fire.
It's sinusitis, basically. I don't know why. Shout out to Body Armor. But let's do this math, right? The best year that Juju Smith-Schuster ever had was 2018, right? I think he caught 100 balls, and he eclipsed, I want to say, over 1,200 yards, excuse me. Who was opposite him? Antonio Brown, who was an absolute. I was letting you answer. I knew you were muted, but I was giving time for everybody else to answer. Well, Antonio Brown was on the other side. Do you have the stats for that year?
I do not.
Okay, look up the stat. Look up 2018 Pittsburgh Steelers, and I want to see the 2 stats that they had. Again, that's with Big Ben basically at the end of his rope. Juju Smith-Schuster's always been a guy that has been aided by other guys being good, right? And when you look at what the Chiefs are going to do, they've got Travis Kelce, who, forget about what you heard about his age and about his falling off a cliff.
Don't disrespect my boy.
Look at him in the playoffs when things mattered. He was unstoppable. And he still can get open at will, right? So let's look at as you're looking over. Okay. Lou has to go take care of the daycare right
my
now.
Baby's lit. Yeah, my baby's literally going.
Good,
I wasn't gonna jump in here, but you started with the Gabe Davis, and I was like, that's my boy.
Okay.
But to your point, it's over 1,500 yards that Antonio Brown had that year, and I think about like 8 to 12 touchdowns.
Okay, exactly. All right, you're good. You can come back whenever you want. We'll be hanging out. Yeah, attaboy. There we go. Thank you for your service. Okay, so yeah, if I'm looking at Juju Smith-Schuster with a plus quarterback and somebody who is going to be able to help take the defensive pressure off of him, I'm starting him absolutely. And Trey Lance or Baker Mayfield. I love Trey Lance's ceiling this year. George Kittle's injury makes me really worried. That groin injury they're saying is actually maybe a multi-week injury. So if you've drafted George Kittle, try to hit the waiver wire, try to pick up somebody like David Njoku, Mo Alley Cox, somebody that you can have as a nice backup. But for week 1, let's just say for week 1, I'm going to take Baker Mayfield revenge game against Cleveland, new weapons. McCaffrey's healthy. DJ Moore's an absolute star. I'm going to take him there. Mike Fuentes, the boy, says pick one. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brandon Cooks, Rashad Penny. The Sun God is so good. Like I think he caught. Hey, there we go. Wow.
If it's PPR, you gotta go with the Sun God, brother.
Brandon Cooks is really good though, and obviously everybody knows my affinity for Davis Mills. But I'm gonna take Amon-Ra there. Let's see. Is Tom Brady worth the early QB pick? Yeah, I think so. Threw 43 touchdowns last season. Has plus weapons, getting Chris Godwin back. Mike Evans, all he does is catch touchdowns. Julio Jones is there, even though he's kind of a shell of what he used to be. I still like him. Gabe Davis tonight or Devonta Smith on Sunday. Also, Josh Allen's my QB. Oh, brother, Brian Fry, you got to go with the stack ski there. Gabe Davis tonight. Let's see. Bill Knight says, who should I start? Travis Etienne or DK Metcalf? The Jags play the Commanders. And then obviously we've got the double revenge game with Russell coming back to Seattle. Geno, look, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a hot take here. Geno Smith is not that bad. I know it's crazy. He's not that bad though. Is he going to be able to produce 2 top 25 wide receivers like Russell did with DK and Tyler Lockett? Of course not. But I think that he can get DK in some spots, and DK is just obviously such a monster on the outside that he almost just commands the ball. I'm going to take Metcalf there in a PPR. Mike Davis or Chase Edmonds, assuming J.K. Dobbins doesn't play, non-PPR. Thomas Spencer. Tom, I think, if you want me to be honest, I think that there's going to be a little bit more of a rotational aspect with the Ravens, at least early on. Chase Edmonds really only has to worry about Raheem Mostert. And obviously, we know Raheem Mostert is excellent, right? I love Raheem Mostert. But I think they paid Chase Edmonds in mind to make him the feature back. Non-PPR is tough because I love him catching balls out of the backfield. I'm going to go Chase Edmonds there, though. David Harris says, start Darren Waller or Chris Olave in my flex. Look, I'm big on the Olave train this year. I think he's going to absolutely smash. I think his skill set with Jameis Winston is going to be a match made in heaven. Jameis wants to target guys downfield. He wants to throw vertical. Olave is a speedster. He's a great route runner. He's a guy that is going to take the top off of that defense. You look across, you've got Michael Thomas, who's older, who's been hurt, who basically runs only a couple of routes, right? And even though he was an absolute monster with Drew Brees, is he going to go vertical enough to match with Jameis Winston? I don't know. On the other side, you got Jarvis Landry, and we know what Jarvis is. He's a dog, but at the end of the day, he's getting older, and there's a reason why he signed like a $1 million deal, right? I think all that to say, effusive praise for Chris Olave, I still think the guy to start is Darren Waller. His connection with Derek Carr is important. I know Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow are there, but there's still something to Darren Waller. I have a bunch of Darren Waller in a bunch of different leagues and in best ball. I still think that he's going to be used a lot in the red zone. And I've had my frustrations with Derek Carr before, being somebody that's had Darren Waller across the board in multiple seasons. But I still think shootout potential that game has, obviously Chargers, Raiders. I want every piece of that offense. Damian Pierce or Ramondre Stevenson in a full PPR league. Damian Pierce has been getting a lot of love. I'm a huge Ramondre Stevenson fan. I have him probably in every league. And as I don't know if you guys know this, I'm a huge 0 RB shill. So I was in drafts where I wasn't taking a running back until the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th round. And Ramondre is somebody that I got a lot of exposure to. I think that Belichick has been talking him up. His blitz protection, which is important for a Belichick back. His pass catching now, obviously, James White moving on. that role is so important to the New England offense. Excuse me. That role is so important to that New England offense. And again, if you look across, they have receivers that aren't that good. And I've said it on the show a bunch. And I said it during the Dolphins preview that we did with the guys from the Porpoise Pod, me and Chris Cody. I think the Patriots have the worst roster in the AFC East. And when you look at Devontae Parker, Jacoby Myers, you've got the two tight ends that are, they're okay. Hunter Henry has kind of not really been great. I don't love that offense. I think their points are going to have to come from somewhere. Their playmaking is going to have to come from somewhere. And I think it's going to be Ramondre. So I'll take Ramondre Stevenson there. Let's take a look. Pick one: Travis Etienne, Miles Sanders, Jerry Jeudy, Amon-Ra St. Brown for a flex and a half PPR league. Wow. So I've been torn, right? I really like both Denver receivers this year. Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. I've been trying to get them kind of everywhere. And I'll give you guys a little bit of a callback. So what I like to do, and I think a lot of smart football people have started to realize, at least on the fantasy side, there is something to undervalued wide receivers that have a quarterback change, that have a coaching change, that really changes the dynamic of not only the offense, obviously, but of their value. And I thought, obviously, we see this most recently with Matthew Stafford getting to LA. Jared Goff is gone. All of a sudden, Robert Woods, Bobby Trees, and Cooper Kupp are given Matthew Stafford, who is a teammate elevator. And you see Cooper Kupp go, 136 catches for like 1,500 yards and 19 touchdowns. Like, that's the formula we want. A guy who changed teams, who gets a teammate elevator, right? Now, all of a sudden, we're looking at Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. No Tim Patrick now. Russ is a teammate elevator, top 25 guys with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Like, I'm trying to target those guys everywhere. And I know that early out of camp, it's been Cortland Sutton's been the guy that has been clicking with Russell Wilson. But Jerry Jeudy is an elite route runner. He's a guy that, again, hasn't done great over the last couple of seasons. Injuries have played a little bit of a part. I think the offense has played a lot of the part, where the quarterback play has been absolutely not great. I'm going to take a chance on Jerry Jeudy. I like him over the rest of the pack. Let's get some here. I've been reading these on Twitter. Let's get to some of the ones here. Albert O. I like Albert O in this offense too. Olave all day. Darren Waller. Jalen Hurts, a top 5 QB this year. H2O. Absolutely. Without a doubt. And watch out that he's not the overall QB1. His ability to run has given him a floor that, not many QBs have. And I think with the addition of AJ Brown, Devontae Smith another year, like, I think he can be a excellent QB1. Let's see. Empanadas or croquetas? Croquetas. Sorry. Tony with the Michael Scott light. Which one? This one right here? Huh. Davis is a good sleeper pick. Let's see here. My Twitter for some reason stalled. I don't know why. I'm trying to get stuff to open up and it's not. Okay, here we go. A couple more, then we'll wrap it up. I appreciate everybody for hanging out. If you have any questions, if you have anything, hit me up on Twitter at 10daytony. Let's see here. Cole Kmet or Gerald Everett with Kittle hurt. I think that Gerald Everett's going to be really nice. Again, going to the theory of I want to get with I want to get skill players that are connected to quarterbacks that are elite. Gerald Everett is a guy that is elite, attached to. He's not elite. Let me rephrase that. He's attached to a guy that is elite, and that's somebody that I want to be in business with. Alan Lazard, Tyler Boyd, or Julio Jones at wide receiver 2. Brother, hopefully it's a 27-person league. If wide receiver 2, you're starting Alan Lazard, Tyler Boyd, or Julio Jones, you are in trouble. Alan Lazard. And then got a bunch of these of grading of lineups and stuff. Send me those at 10-Day Tony. I'll try to answer. Let's see here if we have any more. Oh, this I answered this one, but this is just funny for you guys to hear. Tony, I need help because I might be Miami biased thanks to you guys. Do I start Tua or Rodgers in week 1? Really? Tua or Rodgers in week 1? That's what we're doing right now? That's crazy. Aaron Rodgers, of course, is MVP. Did you guys forget that? Lou, do you have anything else to tell the people? We're going to wrap up here. Let them get to their football. I know you're out there somewhere. Also, still doing the baby. Oh, okay. No biggie. I just saw you look like you want to say something. For those, I know the bit is funny, and it is the fade Tony. If you're fading what I'm telling you here, that's probably not good. I would say to take the fantasy stuff at face value. The winning Wednesdays. You know what? I want to let you guys in on a secret. Okay. I want to let you guys in on a secret. So, I don't watch baseball, right? Don't really care. I'm glad other people watch it. Not my bag. When we pick winning Wednesdays, I just take the team that is the best team and pit them against the worst team. And then I pick the worst team so you guys fade me and get the best team, right? Which is why that's why I'm always picking against the Dodgers, the Mets, the Braves. My voice is going out with a whisper. Remember, I have sinusitis, guys. I can't breathe out of my nose at the moment, so the whisper's tough. But all that to say, don't fade me here. Fade me in other places. Don't fade me here whatsoever. Again, thanks to Drew Dinkmeyer of Establish the Run for hanging out with us, building that little 30K flea flicker. Again, man, if we win, and if that thing, if that lineup gets to first place, I'm cutting Lewis a check for 3K. I'm getting a check for 3K, and I'm sending a check to the Dinkmeyer estate for 3K as well. Shout out to him. Thank you to Drew for hanging out with us. You can follow him at Drew Dinkmeyer, again, legend in the DFS game. Follow the guys that Establish the Run. They put out incredible content on a daily basis. Their pods keep everybody informed. Their projections, their ownership projections on daily fantasy are incredible. A lot of good stuff on their end. They're going to be hanging out with me, doing a lot more stuff in the fantasy scope. Not tomorrow. What day is today? Thursday. Saturday, UFC 279. Nate Diaz's final run in the octagon against Khamzat Chimaev. We've got Tony Ferguson versus Li Jingliang. 2 big fights. We're going to be hanging out. The boys are going to be hanging out on this very platform, wherever you're watching on Twitter or on YouTube. We'll be hanging out 10 p.m. start of the main card. We also have an interview with Tony Ferguson in where Lewis does 20 push-ups for Tony Ferguson in his kitchen, which is really exciting. That's coming up tomorrow on our YouTube channel. Me and Tony go back and forth on who really is Tony, him or me. Spoiler alert, I lose. A lot of exciting stuff coming on our YouTube channel. Again, check out all the stuff from the show this week. We had a fun week. Football's back, so that means God bless. On Friday, tomorrow, they've got a bunch of good guests. Check out Mystery Crate. It's awesome. Check out all the pods on our network and check out everything that everybody does here. Follow me at 10-Day Tony. We'll be doing a lot more fantasy stuff throughout the season. What I want to do, too, is pulling up on you guys on Sundays and kind of do a little bit of this on a Sunday morning, getting you ready for DFS, getting you ready for your season long leagues. I'm a huge Siri is absolutely kicking my ass. Does that happen to you guys? Where Siri, all of a sudden I'm talking and Siri starts picking me up and starts saying stuff? Regardless, MMA Hangout on Saturday, 10 p.m., this very channel. Tony Ferguson, he's an absolute riot. We had him. He'll be on tomorrow. And let's see, what else? We're just taking over, baby. Lewis is at the daycare. He's doing his stuff. There he is. Attaboy, Lou. Moss 4, when and where, that is to be determined. TBD, I don't know. But again, thank you for everybody. There's Lewis. There's young Vinny Gabs in the building.
Vinny Gabagool, how you doing?
Vinny Gabagool in the building getting burped.
Thank
you so much for everybody that hung out with us. Enjoy your football. Enjoy everything that you got going on. I'm going to go order some flannies. I'm going to sit on my couch, eat whatever I'm going to order, watch football. Life is good, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. The boys are out. Peace.